Ito ang inyong lingkod na nagbabalik upang magbigay ng mga balitang walang bias at pawang katotohanan lamang. Ito ang Bayang Pinas. Ang isyong ito ay naging usap-usapan sa buong bansa at iba't ibang social media platforms. Attorney Secretary Soljen Guevarra muling sinampal ng katotohanan at ng kahihiyan itong si 6th District Representative Congressman Benny Abante. Dahil nga mga kaibigan ay hindi talaga naiintindihan nitong Congressman Abante na ito ang ating batas dito sa ating bansa. Dahil nga mga kaibigan ay sa sobra niyang paghihiring at pagkukwestiyon patungkol dito sa nakaraang administrasyon ni Presidente or former President Rodrigo Roa Duterte patungkol sa war on drugs ay talagang hindi niya na nga naiintindihan ang ating saligang batas. Salamat na lamang dito kay Atty. Soljen Guevarra ay talagang dito niya ipinaiintindi at ipinamumukha dito kay Congressman Abante ng ating batas ay talagang meron na nga at nandun na sa ating mga nakasulat sa ating saligang batas na kailangan nating sundin. Dahil dito kay Congressman Abante ay talagang gusto niyang papasukin ang ating or ang itong tinatawag nating ICC kung saan mga kaibigan ay mga dayuhan or mga alien ang mag-iimbista patungkol dito sa war on drugs ni former President Rodrigo Roa Duterte. Ngunit dito nga in-explain ni Atty. Guevarra na itong ICC na ito ay wala talagang jurisdiction sa ating bansa dahil nga meron naman tayong sariling justice system. Tila ba sinabi niya rin dito at pinamukha dito kay Benny Abante na kapag aayaan natin ang sa ICC na mag-imbestiga dito sa ating bansa ay talagang dito nga makikita na ipinapahiya lang or ikinahihiya nitong si Congressman Abante ang ating saligang batas dito sa ating bansa kaya gusto niya papasukin ng ICC. Kaya hindi na lang maiwasan ng ating mga netizen na magbigay ng kanilang mga hinaing at opinyon. Mahusay ka po, Atty. Guevarra. Ipagpatuloy mo po ang iyong mga tamang paliwanag. Mga lawyer din po ang ilan sa kausap ninyo pero bilib po ako sa inyo. Sana isa kayo sa congressman at senador like Congressman Marcoleta. Habang tumatagal sa dami ng hinihiling sa Congress, lalo nating nakikita kung gaano kaimportante na ang iboto ay ang mga smart lawyers, hindi basta lawyers. Sabi nga ni late Miriam Defensor sa isang young lawyer from a prestigious school, I am not impressed. Dahil di nila alam ang batas, daming taxpayers' money ang sayang, sweldong nasasayang. By the way, this lawyer belongs to the Senate in the future. Oy, Abante, who cares about the ICC? Why don't we just focus on our more important internal problems like job creations, increasing prices of goods, and most important, the rampant corruptions among lots of politicians or people in the government? Attorney Soljen, sana sabihin mo sa mga congressman na yan, ikaw na ang iimbestiga sa kanila kung saan nila dinadala ang mga budget nila. Kailangang transparent tulad ng mga sinasabi nila every time na may hearing puno dyan sa Congress. Unahin nyo si Abante at Kimbo. Well, para nga sa kabuang didali ay panoorin na lamang ang buong video at salamat na rin sa ating mga solid viewers sa walang sawang pagsuporta. At kung bago naman sa ating channel ay syempre huwag kakalimutang mag-subscribe, pindutin ang notification bell, piliin na rin ang all upang laging maging updated sa mga balitang bago, totoo at walang bias dito sa channel ng Bayan ng Bayang Pinas. Huwag din pong kakalimutang mag-iwan ng like at i-share ang ating mga videos. Muli po maraming salamat and God bless!
Can you please enlighten me on this?
Yes, Your Honor.
One of the reasons why I filed the resolution 1477, I call it exact global accountability. uh, layman's language tells us that what's happening now is a nagging problem already for how many years? In fact, when the President Duterte was the president, I've always supported his decision on this. But Mr. Secretary, it has been 7 years now and still going on. And I was wondering when is it going to stop? The thing is this, the ICC does not agree with our point. Now, I believe that the criminal justice is working in the Philippines. But sinasabi ko nga dito, our cooperation with the ICC reflects our willingness to be transparent and responsible on the world stage, because what the world sees now is what the ICC tells them, what not the Philippines tell them. I'd like you to tell me about that. Do you agree with that, Mr. Secretary?
I'm sorry, Your Honor, but not quite. Not quite. Dahil ang ating Philippine government naman po ay nag-submit ng necessary information sa ICC Prosecutor's Office. Kaya nga lamang po ang tingin niya ay insufficient yung ating ginagawa. Just to supplement po yung...
Let me interject, Secretary. Yeah, you mentioned that, no, kanina. You mentioned it kanina. Pero alam niyo naman ang ICC, may question din dyan eh. Di ba? Sabihin nila, hindi naman enough yung information na binibigay niyo sa amin. So why don't you allow us to go there and have our own investigation?
Well, ay viewpoint nila yon, ano po. Pero tayo naman ay merong pinakita talaga na actual na information na mapagbabasihan nila kung tayo ay kumikilos o hindi kumikilos. As of, for example po, as of October 2023, yung pong naunang priority cases na galing sa PNP, 56 ng laban cases. 25 were closed for lack of interest on the part of the complainants or requesting party. 19 cases are still pending investigation. 12 cases were filed before various courts and prosecutors' offices. May conviction na po dyan kina Arnaiz, kay Kulot de Guzman, may case for homicide against for the death of Crispin Vedanio, may criminal case against a police officer for the killing of a certain Garbo, the filing of information for the murder of certain Sawadjahan, Bacalso, and Hofer, for the death of Leo Morata, public police officers who were involved in the killing of Richard Santillan and Casing are currently on trial for murder before the RTC of Cainta. Information for murder was filed against police officers involved in the killing of a Spanish national by the name of Diego Lafuente. Cases for murder were filed in the case for the death of a certain Elpidio Sevilla Francisco, etc., etc. 250 other non-laban cases were investigated by the NBI Bulacan District Office. But quite unfortunately, Your Honor, according to the NBI, 70 to 80% of these cases in Bulacan were left hanging because the victims' families could not be located or were uncooperative. In the entire Central Luzon area, 58 cases are under investigation. So in short, Your Honor, these are being done by our investigative agencies. It's just that konti pa lang po yung nakakarating sa ating mga husgado because we have a certain process to follow. Yung pong sa preliminary investigation could take some time. And sometimes these are appealed by way of certiorari kung meron pong finding ng probable cause. So it's because of our process. Hindi naman po pareho ang proseso natin at ng ICC. Yung kanila po kung ano ang gusto nilang gawin. Kung gusto nilang mag-imbestiga, kung gusto nilang magpa-aresto kaagad, they can do so. Pero yung sa atin po, hindi ganun yung process. And our process needs time. Parang na-straight jacket nga po tayo. Binigyan po tayo ng panahon para pakita na may ginagawa tayo. Pinakita naman natin na may ginagawa tayo. Kaya lamang wala pang nakakarating masyadong marami sa mga courts dahil nga po may process. So, maaaring ito po ay hindi katanggap-tanggap. Maaaring ito po ay kulang sa paningin ng ICC. Pero hindi naman po ibig sabihin na wala naman tayong ginawa. I hope that the DOJ and the law enforcement agencies are now exerting greater efforts para po masabi naman talaga na ito namang ating sistema ay nagfa-function.
Soldier, can I just cut you there? And
Sige po.
because the numbers that you mentioned, no, although it's less than 1,000, the figures that you just mentioned now, and that they were claiming that there were 7,000 plus deaths. No,
Opo.
and what I find strange, Mr. Soljan, is the fact that when the PNP and the DOJ were asked about this, no one seemed to have any clue as to the number of cases that were filed, and it strengthens the suspicion kasi that our government agencies are not doing enough. Now, knowing that this is an issue that has been hounding not just this administration but the previous administration also, parang it presupposes that we take it seriously and that we have the figures at hand, no? So I was going to ask the figures from the PNP and the DOJ to be submitted to the joint committees, but since you already mentioned it, can you please furnish the joint
Yes
committees
po.
with copies
Ito
of those?
po ay as of October 2023 at ito po ay base lamang sa information available to the OSG. Pero syempre po ang higit na makakaalam dyan ay ang ating mga law enforcement agencies at ang DOJ.
So then it-
Binolunteer ko lang po ito
Okay.
para merong idea kayo na ito naman ang ginagawa. ng
Yes, sir.
ating
So we
gobyerno.
will be the
Here for
Well-
Congressman Lagman. I just would like to refer the question to a good friend of mine, Attorney Guevarra. All right, because you made mention that the withdrawal to the ICC is a political decision. So I just would like to also be enlightened, no, being a non-lawyer, okay, because a declaration of principles and state policies under the Constitution, where the Philippines adopts generally accepted principles of international law as part of the law of the land and adheres to the policy of peace, equality, justice, freedom, cooperation, and amity with all nations. Is that also a political declaration?
I think so, Your Honor, because it's a declaration of policy.
Well, to me, that would be more questionable, Attorney Guevara. No, what I'm saying is, when it comes to the Constitution, it is not just a political declaration. It is the Constitution.
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, I'm not a lawyer, but I understand it. You know, that is not a political declaration. It is the Constitution we are talking about. But you were referring to the withdrawal to the ICC as a political question or decision in my.
Your Honor, let me just clarify what I said. I was referring to the matter of extending cooperation to the ICC. That is what I said, na political in character, whether we will cooperate or not. So that's basically, well, as I said, a political decision. That's why I had to explain from my end the legal position, because the legal position will have a very significant bearing on the matter of making a political decision.
Well, since it was the Senate who ratified our membership for the ICC, would it be also the concurrent of the Senate whenever the president withdraws from the ICC? Should there be a concurrence of the Senate?
It's an unresolved issue, Your Honor. Kasi yun pong concurrence na binigay ng Senate dito po sa ating pag-join sa Rome Statute or the ICC did not contain any such condition na kung sakali na magwi-withdraw ang Republic through the Executive Department, through the President, ay kakailanganin din po ng concurrence ng Senate. Pwede nyo pong gawin yon as a matter of fact. The Senate can do it if it wants to, na kung magbibigay sila ng concurrence, yung kanila pong resolution granting the concurrence may include, if they wish, a condition na kung magwi-withdraw sa treaty or whatever agreement, ay kakailanganin din ng concurrence of the Senate. But in this particular case po of the Senate concurrence on the ratification of the Rome Statute, wala pong ganong klaseng condition. Kaya po the President had that discretion to withdraw even without the concurrence of the Senate.
Before I recognize Congressman Lagman, just to follow up on the question of my co-chair, Abante. Again, for the Solicitor General. Sir, you said that it is a political question. So my question is, if the House approves the 3 resolutions and the Senate approves its similar resolution, will the government agencies like your office and the DOJ still wait for the decision of the President, regardless of the resolutions passed by the House and the Senate?
Certainly, Your Honor, because your resolutions urge the President to cooperate. So the final say of whether, in fact, the government will cooperate will be with the President. Yours is an expression of sentiment. That is how you feel about it. But that is not something that is binding. It all depends on the final decision of the President whether he will grant your request that we cooperate. Nasa kanya po yun. And he has repeatedly declared, ito nga po yung sinabi ko earlier, na we cannot give our cooperation to the ICC prosecutor. Nasabi niya na po yun several times. Now, if he will think twice because of these resolutions coming from the Congress, siya po ang magde-decide nun.
Thank you, Sergeant Guevarra. I would now recognize Representative.
Inquiries being conducted by the prosecutor from all possible sources, open sources, media, newspaper reports. The government had nothing to do with it, Your Honor.
Okay. Is there any rule or article in the Rome Statute which provides the time frame within which the ICC or its prosecutors should commence its investigation and exercise of jurisdiction?
There is none,
There is none.
Your Honor.
There
There
is
is none.
There is none. So it appears that the allegation of the government that the ICC jurisdiction has lapsed has no leg to stand on in the Rome Statute.
That is not correct, Your Honor, because I am talking about exercise of jurisdiction. When is that triggered? And it is triggered according to Article 13 when the ICC prosecutor initiates an investigation.
Okay. And what kind of investigation should that be?
That is precisely the subject of his request with the pretrial chamber to commence an investigation.
Is that the preliminary examination or the preliminary
We
investigation?
interpret that, Your Honor, to mean the preliminary investigation.
So prior to that, there was already a preliminary examination and exercise of the jurisdiction of the ICC and its prosecutors. Now, don't you think it is an exercise in futility of admitting that there is jurisdiction over the offense, and there can be no more exercise of jurisdiction because it has lapsed?
No, Your Honor, there is no inconsistency between that. As I explained earlier, the Rome Statute tries to balance certain considerations. One is the sovereign right of the state to withdraw if for some significant or important reasons the state wants to withdraw. That is a sovereign right.
Okay.
And the other interest that needs to be balanced is the ICC's effort to end all impunity. So that is why meron nga pong 1-year period na
We
provided
will go to
under
that.
the ICC.
We will go to that 1-year
Yes,
period.
opo.
I would submit to chairpersons that it is truly an exercise in futility that you adopt jurisdiction over the offense and you frustrate the exercise of jurisdiction because it has lapsed, particularly so when there is no rule in the Rome Statute with respect to the time frame within which the ICC or its prosecutors should act. Now, may we know whether the state party to the ICC, like the Philippines, would have concurrent obligations as well as residual obligations?
Ang tinatanong niyo po ay ang ICC or ang member state po ba? Ang tinatanong niyo.
Yung member state, the member state of the Rome Statute, which created the ICC, does the member state like the Philippines have concurrent obligation when it is still a member, or when it is still a state party, and has residual obligations after its withdrawal becomes effective?
Yes, Your Honor, definitely. Habang siya ay miyembro ng ICC, naturalmente lamang po na meron siya mga certain obligations to perform as a state party to the Rome Statute. At meron din po siyang residual na obligations like halimbawa po yung mga contributions, mga financial contributions. Kahit na po siya ay nakapag-withdraw na, kung meron pa po siyang mga financial obligations, ay patuloy pa po niyang kailangang i-discharge yung ganong klaseng obligation, which is residual after the effectivity of its withdrawal.
Okay. Maliban sa financial obligations, meron pa ba na residual obligation ang isang state party na nag-withdraw na with effectivity?
Maring mayroon pa po yung sinasabi nga na residual obligation to cooperate. Opo. Pero yun pong obligation na yun ay hindi na magmamatter kung talagang effective na po ang kanyang withdrawal.
Ang gusto mo, hindi na residual yun kung effective na yung withdrawal. Ang residual ay after the effectivity of the withdrawal. Ang sabi mo ay merong residual obligation with respect to financial obligations.
Yes.
Meron ba bang ibang obligasyon?
Kung ang tinutukoy niyo po yung after the effectivity of the withdrawal, ay wala na pong legal duty
Wala
to
na.
cooperate.
Wala na. Nabasa ba po ninyo? Palagay ko, nabasa naman ninyo yung
Article 127.
Article 127.
Yes, sir.
Ano sila sabi dito? Let me quote again. This was quoted previously. A state shall not be discharged by reason of its withdrawal from the obligations arising from this statute while it was a party to the statute, including any financial obligations which may have accrued. Its withdrawal shall not affect any cooperation with the court in connection with criminal investigations and proceedings in relation to which the withdrawing state had a duty to cooperate and which were commenced prior to the date on which the withdrawal became effective. Palagay ko, is my reading of the subject section 127 accurate?
Very correct, Your Honor, especially yung last part na sinabi niyo, and which were commenced prior to the date on which the withdrawal became effective. Kaya nga po sinasabi ko, yun nga pong na-commence ay nangyari po noong 2021 na tapos na po ang effectivity ng ating withdrawal. Kaya nga po hindi siya applicable, Your Honor.
Ikaw mismo nagsabi na nag-commence yung preliminary examination.
No. Your Honor.
I can appeal to the records of the case. You said that the preliminary, the examination mismo ay nag-commence before the effectivity of the Philippines withdrawal. But the request for a preliminary investigation came after.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Correct?
Yun nga po yung ating bone of contention dahil nga po ang interpretation ng government yan ay preliminary investigation ang tinutukoy. Kaya nga po humingi ng authorization pa ang prosecutor to commence his preliminary investigation.
Okay.
Yung pong preliminary examination, sa kanya lang po yun eh. Sa parte lamang po ng prosecutor yon, siya lamang po ang dumidiskarte doon. Pardon my word. Pero hindi pa po involved ang ICC chamber doon sa time na nangangalap ng ebidensya ang prosecutor. Hindi pa po involved ang chamber ng ICC. Kanya lamang pong sariling effort yon ng prosecutor.
Well, sa palagay ko naman, yung examination ay yun ang pagsisimula ng pag-imbestiga ng prosecutors ng ICC. And they will not proceed without the go signal from the ICC. Kaya we are trying to make a distinction which should not be made. Just so to escape our obligation to cooperate. Ngayon, palagay ko naman alam ng Solicitor General ang Philippine jurisprudence on jurisdiction.
Yes, Your Honor.
And once jurisdiction is laid or attached with the filing of a complaint, whether in a civil or criminal case, that jurisdiction continues unimpeded until there is a pronouncement by the court of its final judgment and its enforcement of its decision. Hindi ba totoo yan?
Tama po yan sa ating judiciary under our legal system. Pero ito pong sa ICC, ito po ay covered ng isang treaty. Kaya po yung ating jurisprudence on jurisdiction does not necessarily apply to an international treaty like the Rome.